My marriage to Adrian was bought with my mother's life. In his eyes, my methods were despicable, utterly disgusting. Before the wedding began, Adrian sent me a message, his tone flat. If you're not here in 10 minutes, you can forget about ever being Mrs. Astor. He didn't know that I had died the night before the wedding, just as he wished. The position of Mrs. Astor would never be mine in this life, but after he learned of my death, he hunted down my murderers one by one. The rainy night was stained red with blood, and he knelt in the middle of it all, crying and begging for my forgiveness. At the wedding venue, Adrian walked in, impeccably dressed. Stella, wearing an identical mermaid-style gown, was surrounded by a circle of makeup artists, touching up her slightly smudged makeup. The assistant standing next to Adrian was frowning, dialing my number over and over again. There was still no answer. Of course, he couldn't get through, because I was already dead. I had died the night before our wedding. Stella's makeup was exquisite. An unknowing observer would have thought she was the bride. She had a beautiful figure, and the form-fitting gown accentuated her curves perfectly. I think I understood then why she had suggested I wear a mermaid-style dress as well. On a well-proportioned body, it was alluring. On a slender, flat figure like mine, it would just be a laughingstock. But what did it matter? Adrian didn't care. When Stella saw Adrian, her eyes reddened, and she bit her lip, the very picture of pitiable beauty. It's all my fault. I wasn't born into a good family, and that's why you were forced to marry someone else. Adrian walked over and patted her back comfortingly. It's my fault for not being able to give you a proper title. Stella, as if she had finally found an outlet for her grievances, buried her face in his chest, her tears falling like rain. I really don't care. As long as you're by my side, I'm content. I'm just afraid Miss Grant will be angry. It's all right. If she gets angry, I'll go and beg her to forgive you. I had heard that line many times. She always spoke words of apology, but her expression was always one of triumph and mockery. It was so obvious, yet Adrian was blind to it. All the patience he once had for me was now directed at her. Adrian turned to call me, but when I didn't answer, he sent a text. Stella has already apologized to you. What more do you want? It's just a wedding dress. Don't be so ungrateful. If you're not here in 10 minutes, you can forget about ever being Mrs. Astor. After sending the message, he paused, then quickly returned to his normal self. Though I knew he didn't like me, in that moment, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. Yes, it was just a wedding dress. Because Stella liked it, I had to choose a dress that didn't suit me. It was her wedding dress, not mine. The reason he had married me was simple. For my mother's heart. His mother had a heart condition and needed a transplant. Coincidentally, my mother's heart was a match. He needed my mother's heart to save his own mother. My mother had made a deal with him. If he married me, she would donate her heart. At that time, my mother was already terminally ill, with no cure. She knew she didn't have long. She only lived to see us get our marriage license. She never made it to our wedding. It was the last thing she could do for me. Before she went into surgery, she held my hand, her voice weak. After I'm gone, you have to eat well, listen to Adrian, and don't think about me all the time. She then spoke of my difficult relationship with my father. His betrayal in their marriage had caused her to suffer from postpartum depression. When I was just born, she had hit me over the head with a milk bottle, which is why I was now slow to react and had trouble speaking clearly. The scar on my forehead had mostly faded, hidden by my bangs. I owe you so much. In your next life, don't choose me as your mother again. She blamed herself for ruining my life, but how could I ever blame her? She was the best mother in the world. The next day, my mother was gone. My father did not show up. It was Adrian who handled the funeral arrangements. I followed behind him, but he misunderstood my intentions. A marriage bought with your own mother's life. A person like you is utterly disgusting. I shook my head, wanting to explain, but Stella interrupted, watching him treat another woman with such tenderness. My heart was full of grievances I could not voice. From then on, he saw me less and less. I waited for him countless times at his company and at his home, wanting to explain, but he grew tired of it and threw my hand off. The glass on the coffee table was knocked over, shattering on the floor. My palm landed right on the shards, which pierced my flesh. A sharp, stinging pain. He seemed to see it, but still turned his head away, his voice full of disgust. If it weren't for your mother, do you think you could have married me? A vain woman like you is not fit to be my wife. He was still angry about being coerced by my mother. When I was alive, I couldn't win his affection. In death, it naturally didn't matter. I floated listlessly in the air, watching him patiently comfort Stella. His assistant rushed in, We still can't get in touch with Miss Grant. The man we sent out just came back. She wasn't at her apartment either. After I was kicked out of my family home by my stepmother, I had to continue living in a small rental apartment. Adrian tugged at his tie in frustration. Keep looking. Stella took the opportunity to sidle up to him. Adrian, don't be angry. She subtly pushed my sister, Cora, aside and pressed herself against him again. I know this wedding wasn't what you wanted. It's not too late to cancel it. His face darkened. He looked down at her. Even if the wedding is cancelled, my parents would never let me marry you. So, he could see right through her little schemes. But in the past, he had allowed her to bully me without saying a word. The first time I met Stella was a year ago. At the hospital, my mother's body was still in the morgue. I had gone to find him, to ask for his help in arranging for her cremation. I was clutching the handwritten instructions from the doctor, repeating his words to myself, but when I saw him holding another woman, I forgot everything. Stella was in his arms, crying heartbrokenly. Her face, which bore a striking resemblance to mine, was flushed with emotion. When she heard he was going to marry me, her tears fell like rain. Is a heart worth a lifetime of your happiness? It would have been better if they had used mine. I thought after I recovered, we could be together forever, but I never thought. She couldn't finish, breaking down into sobs, her body trembling. When she saw me, she immediately knelt before me, begging me to let him go. We are truly in love, Miss Grant. You will meet someone you love in the future. Please, give him back to me. I can't live without him. But the person I loved was Adrian. I flatly refused her request. I had finally found him after so long. I wasn't going to give up so easily. At my answer, Stella fainted. He furiously pushed me to the ground and called for a doctor. The papers in my hand scattered. The man I had loved since I was a child was now accusing me with a face full of anger. After Stella came to, he warned me in front of her. The person I love is Stella. I will marry you, but I will never love you. His words were like daggers, stabbing into my chest. Even now, as a spirit, the memory of it makes it hard to breathe. When we were children, we would play house. I was the bride, and he was the groom. He asked for my name. I stammered, and in my anxiety, my tongue got tied, and I spat all over his face. He didn't get angry. He took out a handkerchief and wiped my chin. Then he taught me to speak slowly. I could only remember the name my mother called me, Lou. But later, he forgot my name. He would only call another woman Stella. When I was 7, my parents divorced, and I left with my mother. I was afraid I would forget him, forget that time, so I wrote everything down in a diary. But later, with countless moves, that diary was lost. Before my mother passed away, she sent me back to my family, and that's when I met him again. I recognized him at a glance, but he didn't seem to remember me. I pursed my lips, my heart aching, tears welling up in my eyes. He was the one who said he would marry me. He was the one who said he liked me and wanted to be with me forever. But why? Why did he suddenly not like me anymore? The wedding officiant came to say it was almost time, but they still hadn't found me. His face was dark. Facing a hall full of guests, he made an absurd decision. He announced that the bride had suddenly fainted and that her sister, Cora, would take her place to complete the ceremony. You are Luna's sister. It is only fitting that you stand in for her. The bridal suite was in chaos. Stella's tears never stopped. Cora excitedly put on the veil. My father and stepmother were apologizing profusely. The Astor parents were sneering. Only Adrian stood in the corner, staring at his phone in a daze. The music began, and the wedding started. Vows, exchange of rings. Stella stood to the side, looking lost, her eyes full of sorrow. Everyone on the stage had their own agenda. The guests below applauded, awkwardly but politely. I floated before them, numb. I thought I would be sad, but when I touched my chest, it was empty. It felt as if a wind were blowing from all directions, piercing my heart, chilling me to the bone. Someone whispered, "What is this? Is he marrying the older sister or the younger one?" Neither. See that one on the side? She's the real one in his heart. Everyone knew about Stella. With his tacit approval, she had been parading around as the future Mrs. Astor. He knew but did nothing to stop her. He said he couldn't give her a title, so he had to give her everything else. He had given what was rightfully mine to someone else. In that moment, something inside me died. What it was, I don't know. I only know that it was gone. I wanted to talk to him, but he was always with her. On the few occasions we did meet, she was always there. Every time I tried to speak, she would cut me off. My clumsy tongue could never find the right opportunity. In the days after my mother's death, my father watched coldly as my stepmother and stepsister bullied me. Spoiled milk. 3. day, old leftovers, and the dark basement. I wanted to find Adrian, but he was nowhere to be seen. Later, I learned he had been with Stella that whole time. My stepsister locked me in the basement. I fell down the stairs. My forehead split open, bleeding profusely. My father was away. My stepmother and stepsister, calling me a jinx, threw me out. In the end, I could only go to my mother's grave, my head covered in blood. That night, I bled so much. I didn't know if I would die. I only felt my body growing colder. Finally, I couldn't hold on any longer and fell asleep against her cold tombstone. I woke up in a hospital. The cemetery staff had sent me there and had notified him. The nurse who was adjusting my foredrip gently tucked me in. "It's good that you're awake. That was a nasty cut. Be careful not to get it wet when you go home." A kindness I hadn't felt in a long time. And it was from a stranger. He came in with Stella. Seeing my bandaged head, a flicker of guilt crossed his eyes. He pulled at the corner of my blanket, trying to cover me. He accidentally lifted my sleeve, revealing the old red string bracelet on my wrist. On it was a crudely carved peach pit charm. It was something he had carved for me before I left. "Wear this, and I'll be able to recognize you at a glance in the future." All these years, I had never taken it off. He froze, his hand on my wrist. "Where did you get this?" I thought he recognized it. My eyes instantly reddened, but before I could speak, Stella rushed over. "Isn't that my peach pit charm? I've been looking for it for so long." "So you had it?" Her eyes were red, as if she had just found a long-lost treasure. "But it was mine," she cried, accusing me of stealing it. I shook my head, trying to defend myself, but he believed her. He roughly pulled the charm off my wrist and carefully put it on hers. The needle in the back of my hand was dislodged, sending a spray of blood onto the sheets. The nurse scolded him for being so rough and gently reinserted the needle. My throat was tight. I couldn't speak. The person closest to me treated me like dirt, while a stranger showed me the only warmth. The wedding ended amidst a flurry of whispers, surprisingly without any major incidents. After the last guest left, he instantly dropped his smile. Stella, her eyes red and teary, tried to comfort him with a brave face. "I know, I understand. You only swallowed this grievance for my sake. I'll just pretend today's wedding didn't happen. Maybe that will make me feel better." She bit her lip, looking pitiful. Sure enough, a look of pain and guilt flashed in his eyes. I watched from the side, finding it all incredibly absurd. She had stolen everything from me, yet she was still not satisfied. I may be slow, but I knew she was afraid the truth would come out. So she had to make him fall completely in love with her before it did. My father left with Cora. I moved closer to Adrian, but I still couldn't find a trace of concern on his face. My sudden disappearance only caused him trouble and annoyance. The man who had been so desperate to marry me had simply vanished on the wedding day. He never once wondered if something had happened to me. Even though I was now a spirit, I still felt a tightness in my chest. I whispered, "Adrian, did you really not recognize me? Or did you just never like me at all?" 3 months ago, Stella had asked to talk to me. She had driven me out in her car. She grew more and more agitated, and the car started to swerve. We crashed head-on with a light truck. At the last moment, to save herself, she had wrenched the steering wheel. She only had minor scratches. I was left in a deep coma. In a hazy state, I heard her crying. She said she wanted to talk. I was just driving her. She started arguing with me in the car and grabbed the steering wheel. "That's why we crashed." A clumsy lie, but he believed it. I wanted to explain that she was the one who had invited me, that she was the one driving, but I couldn't even open my eyes. When I woke up from the brink of death, the first thing I heard was his accusation. He berated me for being willful, for almost getting Stella killed. If anything had happened to her, you would have paid with your life. With that, he had rushed off to comfort the frightened Stella. The hospital room was quiet. I could even hear the sound of the fluid dripping into my body. She came to see me, still with that gentle smile, but her words were like daggers. "Luna, you're really hard to kill, aren't you? You didn't even die from that." Her fingertips traced my neck, sending shivers down my spine. Then her grip tightened, and she squeezed. "Why did you have to come back? Why don't you just die? If you die, Adrian will be all mine." I struggled to breathe, my face turning red, tears streaming down my cheeks. I thrashed my arms, trying to free myself, but it was no use. I finally passed out. The sound of the medical monitor blaring woke her from her frenzy, and she fled. I had narrowly escaped death again. When I woke up, I thought for a long time. Even though my mind was still foggy, I understood one thing. A streetlight is useless to someone who never crosses the road. I found him and asked for a divorce. I would slowly erase the promises of the past. For the rest of my life, I would wish him well, but I would never wish him happiness. But when he heard my words, he just glanced at me and said nothing. I knew he heard me, but he chose to remain silent, refusing the divorce. I didn't understand why. Thinking of this, I let out a small laugh. I didn't get an answer when I was alive. Now that I'm dead, it's even more impossible. Perhaps the air I exhaled was too cold. He seemed to sense something. He frowned and looked in my direction. Nothing. He left the hotel with Stella. On the way home, he kept looking at his phone, as if waiting for a message. I followed them. She sat in the passenger seat, and I sat in the back. I listened as she went on and on about how willful I was, how I had wronged him. She must have disappeared on such an important day just to get back at you, to humiliate you like this. He sighed and looked at her with something akin to relief. At least I still have you. She leaned against him. While they were waiting at a red light, she kissed his cheek. I will always be with you. Then, and now, I floated over to his face, studying his expression, looking for something. What was it? I don't know, but it certainly wasn't the annoyance and disgust he showed now. Whenever my name was mentioned, my mother used to say I was slower than other children, that it took me a long time to understand things. But that was okay. I could just remember them first, and understanding would come later. He didn't care where I had gone, even though I was still missing. He was unconcerned, as if I were a stranger. Even though I was dead, I still felt a sense of grievance. Tears welling up, I cried and asked him, Adrian, why could you so easily forget our promises? Why am I the only one who remembers? I had asked him this same question a long time ago. One night after my mother died, I had woken up from a nightmare, crying for her. Even though he was asleep, he had driven me to the cemetery. On the way back, as we were crossing a bridge, the car skidded and crashed into the railing, plunging into the river. He was knocked unconscious. I was also injured, but with my last ounce of strength, I had pulled him from the car. He had woken up as we were getting out of the water. I had carried him, step by step, back to the main road. He seemed to be moved, calling me a fool, but his tone was tinged with affection. I had asked him if he remembered our childhood. He had said yes. He still remembered that he wanted to marry me, but I can only marry someone else. I'm the one who broke our promise. He was delirious again, mistaking me for Stella, but I was Lou. I whispered my defense, full of hurt and bitterness. When he woke up in the hospital, Stella was by his side. It's all your fault for being so willful. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten so badly injured. You're such a jinx. I had a cast on my leg. I saw his gaze turn to that familiar coldness and disgust. His face was tense, his tone harsh. From now on, don't bother me unless it's necessary. In that moment, a piercing pain spread from my heart throughout my entire body. I was consumed by sadness and grief. Back in my hospital room, I didn't know how to cope. I could only curl up at the foot of the bed and bang my head against the frame, trying to use pain to alleviate the overwhelming despair and sorrow. I didn't dare to see him again, but I couldn't let it go. I sent him a message. Why am I the only one who remembers? Why could you forget so quickly? The message was met with silence. I never got an answer, not even in death. He wouldn't tell me when I was alive. Now that I was dead, he couldn't hear me, and he wouldn't deign to answer. The car stopped at the villa. His phone rang. He told Stella to go inside while he sat in the car alone. It was his assistant, Mr. Astor, Miss Grant. She's dead. His face was blank. He paused for a moment, then replied coolly, oh, okay, I know. He hung up, as if nothing had happened. He sat in the car and lit a cigarette. The moment I heard that voice on the phone, my consciousness was suddenly thrown back. I had ridden my bike to the cemetery. I wanted to tell my mother that I was getting married. On the way back, as I was passing through a small alley, I was hit from behind by a car. The force of the impact sent me flying. I didn't fall into the river, but I hit the guardrail. My head hit the steps, and blood started to flow. It hurt. Footsteps approached. I heard someone on the phone. I'm on it. What's the rush? We agreed. After this is done, you owe me $2 million. Stella, this is illegal. If you weren't my daughter, I'd have called the cops already. Stella. So it was Stella. With all my strength, I reached for my phone. I dialed the last number I had called. It was his. After 2 rings, the call was cut off. I tried again, but this time, before it could even ring, the man found me, still not dead. He took my phone, turned it off, and threw it into the river. Then he broke my fingers, one by one. He cursed at me, saying, dare to get in my daughter's way, you fucking bitch. The man was Stella's father. He was doing this for his daughter. It hurt. It really hurt. The pain of having my fingers broken was excruciating. I drifted in and out of consciousness. I could clearly feel my fingers being twisted into grotesque shapes, pulled, and snapped. Then he shoved his own phone into my hand. Go on. Make another call. As I was thrown into the river, I knew this was the end. Mama, I'm coming to find you. Don't be sad. I really did try my best, but he really doesn't like me. He doesn't want me anymore. I really am that stupid, so I have failed you. I'm a stupid child. In your next life, please don't choose me as your daughter. When I was little, my mother would envy other people's children, so smart and lovely. When she looked at me, she would just sigh with disappointment. I used to dream that I could be a smart, well-behaved child that everyone loved. I would think that every time my mother had an episode, but I really did try my best. I tried to pretend to be smart, just like I had always tried to imitate Stella's every move, trying to become the person they would love, but it was all in vain. I was not the child my mother had hoped for, and I was not the person Adrian loved most. If I had been a little smarter, would my mother have suffered less? If I had tried a little harder, would he have looked at me more? But I would never know the answers. I sank deeper into the water, quietly awaiting my death. A sudden sadness washed over me. Maybe no one will even notice I'm gone. In this world, besides my mother, who else would care about me? Adrian. He was probably with Stella, with no time to spare for me. I don't remember what the weather was like that day. I only remember that the river was truly cold. Maybe I drowned, but it's also possible I died from the pain. I just remember the water filling my mouth and nose. I could even see the weeds and filth floating in the water. My throat was already full of dirty water. In the moment I lost consciousness, I seemed to have returned to my childhood. My mother and father were arguing. I was scared and ran out of the house, only to be surrounded by a group of children. Her mother is crazy. She's a fool. They pushed me back and forth, laughing. I didn't understand what they were saying then. I only knew they were laughing. Maybe I was funny. They were laughing so hard, so I started laughing too. See, I told you she was a fool. They laughed even harder, then told me to get on the ground and play fetch like a dog. The ground was hard. I shook my head. An older child pinched me hard. If you don't, I'll hit you. I cried as I got on the ground and fetched the toy they threw around. What are you doing? A young Adrian appeared at that moment. He seemed more mature than the other children, and his words carried a certain authority. If you bully her again, I'll go tell your parents. The leader of the group immediately apologized to me, then left with the others. He pulled me up and gently wiped the dust from my knees with his handkerchief. Don't play with them anymore. I stood there, stunned. He was squatting, looking up at me. His amber eyes have remained in my dreams ever since. He was the light of my youth, the only obsession in my short life. I saw myself wake up from the water. Below me was my submerged body. My spirit rose from the water. I was being pulled by something, floating further and further away. In the dead of night, the moonlight was a dim gray. I passed through the city center and saw the brightly lit streets crowded with people. An elderly couple held hands, watching a young couple bickering playfully. A child skipped ahead, his parents watching him with smiling eyes. A simple, peaceful life. It was what my mother had wanted, and what I had wanted, but even such a simple wish could not be fulfilled. I floated for a long time before stopping beside him. As I had guessed, he was with Stella. His empty promises could not quell her insecurity. It wasn't until a phone call came that she finally broke into a smile. Her father had taken care of everything. She could now enjoy everything Adrian gave her, without a care, until time completely erased my existence. I saw them sleep in each other's arms, and in the morning, they woke up and were affectionate with each other before getting up. Urged by the assistant, they rushed to the hotel. I was back. After my death, I had returned to attend my own wedding. In the dark, confusing time after my mother's death, I had often thought, in my pain, if I were to die one day, would he regret it? Would he cry for me at my funeral? Now, he had given me the answer. Adrian wanted to light a cigarette. His eyes were full of a restlessness I couldn't understand, as if he were about to lose something. The cigarette between his fingers wouldn't light. The lighter seemed to be broken. Finally, in a fit of frustration, he flicked it hard, and a flame shot out. He never used to smoke. Stella didn't like it. The car quickly filled with smoke. He must have inhaled too deeply, because he suddenly started coughing. The smoke made his eyes red. He had to get out of the car. He stood outside for a long time. When the smell of smoke had dissipated, he went back inside. Stella was already washed up, wearing a sexy lace nightgown, beckoning to him from the bed. Clearly, he was susceptible to this tactic. He took off his tie and jacket and walked towards the bed. As he leaned over her, I turned away. Soon, I heard her moans, but they didn't last long, because his phone rang. He answered impatiently, thinking it was his assistant, and started yelling, "What is it with you? What did she give you? To use such a clumsy excuse to lie to me? Do you think this is a game?" There was a moment of silence on the other end, then, a cold, unfamiliar female voice. The expression on his face was surreal, his eyes empty. A short while later, the assistant rushed over. His lips were pale as he handed his phone to Adrian. On the screen was my death certificate. He stared at the phone in a daze. The phone rang again. He looked at the unfamiliar number but didn't move. The assistant hesitated, then answered and put it on speaker. "Hello, is this a relative of Luna Grant?" This time, it was the police. Her voice held a note of sympathy and helplessness. "Miss, Luna Grant unfortunately passed away this morning. The medical examiner found multiple injuries on her body. We need you to come to the hospital to complete some necessary procedures." I noticed his hands were trembling slightly. He stood there as if he hadn't heard, his gaze empty. The assistant looked at him, his own eyes full of sorrow. After a long time, he slowly stood up. It was evening when they arrived at the hospital. The lobby was quiet, with only a few staff on duty. He walked to the morgue, paused, took a deep breath, and then pushed the door open. My body was covered with a white sheet, lying there quietly, my face pale, as if I were asleep. My body was bloated and pale from the water, my face and features blurred and indistinct. The smell was not pleasant. The assistant couldn't hold it in and turned to retch against the wall. Someone came over and described my injuries to him, and their possible causes. With every word, his face grew darker. The pain from my memories grew sharper. It hurt, more than it had then, but I still couldn't help but look up at his face, wanting to see if he would be sad for me, but there was nothing. The overhead light shone down on his eyes, which were always so cold to me, making them dark and unreadable. This expression remained until Stella arrived. She took his hand and comforted him softly. "You can't bring the dead back to life, Adrian. She can no longer stand between us. You are free now." A fierce look flashed in his dark eyes. "That doesn't mean you can be Mrs. Astor." Then he coolly pulled his hand away. Stella's face stiffened, her eyes filled with hurt and resentment. When he said he would stop at nothing to find the killer, a flash of panic crossed her face. "It was a drizzly day when I was buried. There was no one else, just him and his assistant. He didn't use an umbrella, just stood there quietly, his face etched with the pain of having lost something important. After it was over, they went to my apartment to pack my things. He didn't go up. The assistant packed a few things and came down. A simple box, containing all my worldly possessions." He frowned at it, his gaze falling on a photo album. He picked it up and flipped through it casually, then froze. I saw his breath catch, his chest heaving, as if in great pain. I floated over and glanced at it. It was just a childhood photo of me. Then I saw him take out his own wallet, his hands trembling. He was shaking so much he couldn't open it. Finally, the assistant helped him. When he saw what was inside, his face also changed dramatically. I looked over. Tucked inside his wallet was a childhood photo of me. He opened his mouth, stunned, unable to make a sound. His eyes were filled with a despair and sorrow I had never seen before. His body shuddered. He clutched his heart and collapsed. The assistant quickly told the driver to take them to the hospital. When he woke up, he pulled out his phone and staggered out of the room. Stella tried to stop him. When he heard her voice, he looked at her with a deadly gaze. "Who are you? And that diary, where did you get it?" The pressure radiating from him turned the tears in her eyes to panic. He pressed on. "If you won't tell me, I have my ways of finding out. You should know the consequences of deceiving me." Stella finally panicked. She tried to explain, her words growing more and more feeble, but she still wouldn't tell the truth. He lost his patience, grabbed her by the neck, and squeezed. The madness in his eyes terrified her. So, all my painful past, all the days of growing disappointment with him, were all because of that lost diary. Stella had been my neighbor, but it was so long ago that I didn't remember. She had found my diary and, before she could throw it away, her own mother was diagnosed with stomach cancer. It was treatable, but the cost was high, and her father was a gambler. So, for her mother, she took a risk and went to him with the diary. She had just been trying her luck, not really expecting it to work. It was a desperate fantasy. She had thought that at worst, she would just be thrown out, but to her surprise, her face, which bore a striking resemblance to mine, helped her. He had actually believed her, had mistaken her for me. He had arranged for her mother's treatment, giving her the best care and all his affection. All his longing for his missing childhood friend was poured onto her. So, I was the one who was truly loved, but it was all too late. She got lost in his endless affection and started to want more, until my appearance gave her a sense of crisis. She knew the truth would come out one day, so she stuck to him like glue. Whenever I tried to speak, she would immediately interrupt, but she couldn't be there all the time. When he saw the peach pit charm, she had quickly made up a clumsy excuse. Luckily, I was slow and inarticulate, and he was easily fooled, and so, the only proof of my identity was destroyed by her, and I was left with no other chance. But after that day, he changed. When I asked for a divorce, he refused, only saying the wedding would proceed as planned, perhaps out of guilt, or perhaps for some other reason I didn't know. After Stella had confessed everything, she collapsed on the floor. She knew it was over. He was not a merciful man. He would not let her off lightly for deceiving him, but luckily, he still didn't know the real cause of my death. She could still try. Perhaps, for the sake of their time together, he would show some mercy. He was silent for a long time. From day to night, the hospital room was dark. She slowly crawled towards the bed and knelt on the floor, like a dog begging for scraps. Adrian, I know I was wrong. For the sake of what we once had, can you forgive me? Her voice was soft and pleading, like a delicate flower. It was her usual trick. It had always worked on him before, but today, it failed. He suddenly pushed her away, his eyes cold and terrifying. Get out. She was frightened, her eyes instantly reddening. Adrian. Before she could say more, he had dragged her out of the room. After he closed the door, he slid to the floor, his lips trembled, and he was slowly consumed by a belated grief. His eyes finally filled with the pain and regret I had longed to see. He beat his head with his fists, as if trying to kill himself. Adrian, you bastard, how could you not have recognized her? How could you not have recognized her? Why didn't you tell me? The light was dim, but I could still see the dark patches spreading on the floor. He had finally recognized me. I couldn't help but smile. Adrian, what are you in such pain for? Wasn't this all something you allowed to happen? Adrian, you were wrong. You never gave me a chance to explain from the beginning. There were so many times you could have recognized me. It was your favoritism. Again and again. That killed those explanations and the truth. The peach pit charm he had personally put on me was the last straw. The unanswered phone call was the final connection between us. The pain of that night came rushing back. I curled up in the air, trying to find a corner to hide. Every part of me ached with a piercing pain. It hurt, more than when my fingers were broken. I looked up at him, my voice shattered. Adrian, you have to feel the same pain as me. You said it yourself. It has to be fair. I stared at him until I saw the despair in his eyes. Only then did the pain in my heart ease a little. Yes, you have to suffer too. That's fair. In those days of disappointment and sadness, I had tried to convince myself. He just hasn't recognized me yet. He's so smart. He'll definitely recognize me. So, I could wait. But when I saw him holding her hand, gently wiping a smudge from her face, my heart still ached. I didn't know how to keep waiting. I wanted to ask my mother, but she was already dead. In a world with no one to guide me, I had waited foolishly, fueled only by love. I followed him home. Stella was gone. He found the peach pit charm in the trash can. The sunlight was as sharp as a knife. He squatted by the trash can, staring at the charm in his hand. For a long time, his eyes, which were always so cold to me, slowly filled with mist. Then he began to sob. On the 5th day after my death, the man I had longed for finally shed tears for me. The answers I had always wanted were finally found in that moment. For 2 weeks, he would go to the cemetery where my ashes were buried. His mother sneered at his behavior. What's the point of caring after someone is dead? You should move on. Don't be a laughingstock. He just gave a bitter smile. But he didn't stop. There was no one else. He stood alone before my tombstone. The grief and regret on his face were plain to see. But I felt no relief, no joy. It seemed that after death, all the grievances of life had dissipated. All the pain and sadness he had caused me had exploded and burned out in those few hours. A phone call came in. He answered it numbly. I don't know what was said, but a light instantly returned to his eyes. I followed him to the police station again, led by an officer. He met the man who had killed me, and the disappeared Stella. The police said the case was easy to solve. There had been many accidents on that bridge before, so several cameras had been installed nearby. The reason it took so long to catch him was because he had taken the money and gone to a casino. He had lost the 2 million and, in his desperation, had been caught cheating. The casino had cut off his hands and feet and thrown him into the street. A passerby had called the police the next day. The interrogation had been exceptionally smooth. He had quickly implicated Stella. The motive was simple. Because of Adrian, she had wanted me dead, and her gambler father had a mountain of debt. She gave him 2 million to get rid of me. The light in the interrogation room was a cold white. The man looked up at Adrian and grinned. He seemed to have accepted his fate. He started talking about my last moments. I hit her, but she didn't die. She even made a call. It almost went through, but luckily it was disconnected, so I broke her fingers. To see how she would make a call then. She was shaking, calling for her mother, and some guy named Adrian. He stood ramrod straight in front of the glass, staring at the man inside. Hearing his words, he took out his phone, then he laughed. A pale, weak sound. The police said that in his case, the death penalty was certain. Stella, for hiring a killer, would receive the same sentence. He listened, his face a blank mask. He didn't show any emotion, even as he left the station. As a spirit, I had been crushed by the pain of that night for so many days. Today, the weight on my shoulders finally began to lift. I floated in front of him. He couldn't see me, couldn't hear what I said. I said, Adrian, I wish I had never met you. The day I was killed, my vision was red. I wanted to scream for help, but only a low, hoarse sound came out. I saw the moon rise, saw the ripples on the water. When I was little, after my mother hit me, she would hold me and comfort me. So sometimes, I would look forward to being hit, because then, someone would love me, just like him. He didn't love me when I was alive. Only after I was dead did he remember me. Did he start to love me? But why did they always have to slap me before they gave me a piece of candy? With my slow brain, I could never figure it out. Sometimes, I hated my brain. My mother didn't like it, and he didn't like it. I had always been half a beat behind everyone else. The doctor said it was because of the head injury when I was a baby. My mother, hurt by my father, had taken her anger out on me, then cried and comforted me. When she wasn't having an episode, she was very good to me. Besides him, she was the only warmth in my life. When the pain came, I instinctively called for her. Mama, Mama, where are you? It hurts. Mama, don't hit me. I'll be good. When the body suffers great trauma, it instinctively brings back beautiful memories. To lessen the pain, perhaps knowing my death was near, the only people I could think of were my mother and him. Adrian, help me. I was even hoping for a miracle, that he would appear out of nowhere, like the heroes in the stories who always show up at the crucial moment. But there was no miracle. He was in a warm room, patiently comforting Stella. They slept in each other's arms, their dreams full of a beautiful future together. Before that, in his future, in his dreams, there was never a place for me. The day Stella's father was sentenced, he went to my family's home. My father apologized profusely. Then the conversation turned to a new investment. His company was short on funds and needed his investment. Cora came down in a red dress, shyly sidling up to him. Brother Adrian, my sister is dead. You have to move on. There are plenty of girls who are better and more suited for you than her. My father and stepmother chimed in. After my death, they were already eager to marry my sister off to him, to protect the family's honor, to maintain their relationship with his family. He pushed Cora away and took out a contract. He was acquiring their company. This price should be enough for you. You built your fortune on my wife's back. It's time to pay your debts. My father had risen in the world with the help of my mother's family, but after he succeeded, he had betrayed their marriage and kicked my mother out. That was what had caused her depression. My father was shocked, but powerless. After a brief standoff, he signed the contract. He took the contract and left. At his company, he immediately started to liquidate it. After 2 weeks, the Grant Corporation was gone, replaced by cash. In my name, it was donated to charity. After all that, he stood at his office window, watching the traffic below. He stood there for a long, long time, until late at night, when he took out his phone and sent a message. It was to Stella. He had hired hackers to find her new number. He said, for old time's sake, I'll send you abroad, don't ever come back. It was a long time before she replied. She agreed. 2 weeks later, her fake identity was ready. The flight was at 2 in the morning. He personally drove her to the airport. On the way, she cried the whole time. He listened in silence, his expression dark. She was thirsty from crying. She picked up a bottle of water from the car and took a few sips. Only then did his expression change. Have you ever regretted it? She bit her lip, as if in a fierce internal struggle. Adrian, I know I was wrong. Give me another chance. I'll make it up to you. He let out a soft laugh and turned the steering wheel. I gave you a chance. Who will give her a chance? You didn't give Luna a chance either. She was stunned, her eyes full of disappointment. She lowered her head and said no more. The car's route became more and more remote. By the time she realized something was wrong, he had already stopped. He slowly unbuckled his seatbelt and pushed his seat back to give himself more room. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her chest heaving. Adrian, what are you doing? Murder is illegal. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. It's me, Stella. You said you loved me most. But he acted as if he hadn't heard. Slowly moving closer, he grabbed her by the neck. You know murder is illegal. You know you did wrong. What did Lou do wrong? You didn't even give her a chance. You took her name. You stole everything from her. And you even took her life. She struggled, her limbs growing weak. She couldn't break free. Her face turned red. In the end, she suddenly gave up. She started to laugh. He asked her what she was laughing at. She just kept laughing, louder and louder. And you, what did you give her? Did you forget that you were the one who caused all that pain? I just handed you a knife. You were the one who cut out her heart, piece by piece. You ask me what I'm laughing at. I'm laughing at how she was just as stupid as me, falling in love with the same cold-blooded man. If anyone deserves to die, it should be you first. The night air was still. Unseen creatures called out from the woods on either side of the road. The moonlight filtered into the car. I saw a flash of confusion on his face. She was still struggling, but he held her fast. He took out a dagger from the glove compartment. You're right. I do deserve to die. But first, let me take care of you, and then I'll go down and atone. The cold steel flashed. She was terrified. In that moment, she finally knew what kind of madman she had provoked. She struggled violently, but her body was growing weak. The water she had drunk had been drugged. It was too late to run. She could only watch as he laid her flat. Then he took her hand and examined it carefully. Lou's fingers were broken just like this, weren't they? With that, there was a crack. He had snapped one of her fingers. A scream was caught in her throat. Before she could even catch her breath, she passed out. He threw water on her face to wake her up and continued, Does it hurt? Lou felt the same pain that day. His eyes were full of madness, as if he were performing some beautiful ritual. She was shaking like a leaf, her body drenched in sweat from the pain. You'll pay for this, Adrian. You'll go to hell. He smiled, a sound that seemed to rise from the depths of hell itself. It doesn't matter. I'll go to hell, in exchange for Lou going to heaven. He took out the dagger again and traced it down her neck. Are you scared? Don't worry. I won't use this knife. Everything Lou went through, you will go through too. Only then will it be a proper apology. With that, he dragged her, limp and broken, out of the car. At the riverbank, he threw her in without a second thought, over and over again, until she was completely broken. She begged, Kill me, please, kill me. He smiled and granted her wish, plunging the dagger into her chest and letting go. She sank to the bottom. He sat by the river and took out the wallet, looking at it for a long time. His fingertips trembled as he gently stroked the photo. I'm sorry, Lou. It was all my fault. I'm the one who killed you. I owe you. I'm coming to pay my debt. I watched as he slowly stood up and walked towards the center of the river. I floated in front of him, watching him, just like so many times before, face to face. I watched as his breathing calmed, as the water slowly rose over his body, a strange smile on his lips. You think death is atonement. It's not. You can never atone. He had avenged me, but my heart could not forgive. I had said, I will erase those promises and the past. I will wish you well, but I will never wish you happiness. You do not deserve happiness. Until the ripples on the water's surface calmed, and he was gone. The invisible thread that had been pulling at me slowly disappeared. I was finally free. I could finally go where I wanted. A voice came from behind me. Lou, cautious, ecstatic. Is that you? I did not turn back. Let me see you. Please, don't go yet. We did not have a final meeting in life. I did not want one in death either. Adrian, perhaps it is best if we never see each other again. I thought I saw my mother in the distance, waving to me. Behind her, the night sky was filled with a brilliant light. It fell upon the mountains and fields. My mother smiled and took my hand, apologizing. She said she had misjudged him. My judgment was poor. I misjudged two men, and it ruined both you and me. Her illness was gone. She would not lose her temper with me anymore. She took my hand and walked away without looking back. She said she had found a good family for me. After you are born, it will not be like this life, but in my next life, I still want my mother to be my mother. I hope she never meets a man like my father, that she never gets sick, and I hope I never meet Adrian again.